Well, let's open this up. Iran Morkoch, Republican strategist, is with us. Milad Rabbani, former Iranian diplomat, joins us as well. Mr. Morkoch, let me begin by asking you, the address that came in from President Donald Trump, many expected that there would be a update as to when exactly this war would end. He said it's near completion. He had said that about a week or two ago as well. Has the United States miscalculated how long this is going to take? Is this 2 to 3 week deadline even possible? Will there be a complete collapse as the United States wants?
Well, I don't think there's been a miscalculation as much as the United States is willing to play live ball against Iran and react to an ever-changing battlefield as they see Iran's capabilities. Certainly, there was let's say, best case scenario where the people come out, there's an uprising, this sort of golden revolution. That didn't materialize, but it is very directly true that their entire Navy has been destroyed. Their entire relevant Air Force has been destroyed. 80–90% of their capacity to project power has been destroyed. When things pop up, missiles pop up, those holes are plugged. Those underground missile cities have become tombs for a great part thanks to the B-2 bombers. So in 31 days, when you look at the achievements militarily, I think the idea that the Americans don't have an exit strategy is a little bit wrong to look at because America is not exactly sure how Iran was going to respond. But it is very clear from President Trump's...
Isn't that a miscalculation then, that the American government, that the Israeli government weren't on the same page as to how this was going to go? And by Trump's own admission, he had said that we didn't see the Strait of Hormuz being closed by Iran. Isn't that a miscalculation?
Well, of course, Israel has slightly different goals than the United States of America, too, and that should be taken into account. Israel is on a fully destructive mission of Iran. The U.S. and President Trump, of course, is much more willing to negotiate than Israel would be. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is a choke point. When it comes to choke points, it takes very little when floating bombs are at stake that are insured for billions of dollars, effectively oil tankers. So that wasn't a miscalculation. It was just an acceptable economic casualty for the United States to stop nuclear proliferation, which is what this war ultimately is about, making sure the rest of the Gulf region doesn't have a nuclear arms race.
So, Milad Rabbani, it may not be completely decimated. Iran may not be down and out just yet, but it will happen in 2 to 3 weeks is what Donald Trump and his administration believes.
Hello, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I believe, as we observed today, actually, in US time, there was nothing absolutely new in Trump's words. And we should see the concepts from a little psychological and political society perspective. That is my interesting field of study. The President Trump is an egoist person, is a narcissist person, is a person who wants to be testified, who wants to be magnified by the other people. And he's a person who is looking to be acknowledged by the people, by his colleagues, actually. But now there is a rupture even in his campaign. If I want to tell you honestly, my friend said something true. But he tried to tell in a diplomatic matter. He said there is slightly a difference between US and Israel in Iran war. I tell you there is no slightly difference. There is a big and huge difference between Israel and US. Israel wants something else, but US wants something else. I believe President Trump wants to play. Trump showed us that he says something and he does something else. And I can tell you, I believe with the Air Force, United States cannot win the war. And the Iranian regime knows the political sociology of Iranian people better than Trump. They take it as their advantage. By any casualties that happened in Iran by airstrike, the Iranian regime found more and more friends, take it as advantage. This is what I lived in Iran with that. And I know how this regime is professional to manipulate the mind of people. if the regime
You can't deny the fact
will
that
not.
there have been some attrition, depletion of arsenal on the Iranian side. I mean, the number of missiles that were fired from the Iranian side on day 1 or day 10 have drastically reduced on day 30th.
No one knows about that, but what we can absolutely we can state definitely, there are a huge amount of missile cities. In Persian, we say missile cities in Iran, and they are impenetrable only with massive air force, not air force, sorry, with troops on the ground. They can invade that area. With the air force, they cannot definitely they cannot destroy this region, and Iran can fire. Just take it to consideration. This one, I remember in the war between Hezbollah and Israel. Hezbollah was in a very small region, or even in Gaza. They could fire missiles to Israel. So Iran is a huge country. So it's we should be very naive if we think these missile attacks will finish in a short time. I believe they will continue after 3 weeks. They will continue. The only solution for Trump administration to go out of this chaos war, this war of attrition, is to a miracle by Iranian people, I believe. If they come to the street, they can overthrow because Iranian people want. And that's a problem now Iranian people have got. Iranian people are between two evil. The US administrations and Netanyahu, all the people knows that Netanyahu is an evil. And the Iranian regime also. The Iranian regime that destroy all the Iranian resources. And this war is the result of their government. So I believe Trump said something, but he will do something else. And within 3 weeks, we cannot see any huge change by military forces. As they attack more to Iran, Iranian people will join to Iranian government, the regime, and the government knows how to take this as its advantage.
And Morkoch, as far as miscalculations or things that weren't considered by the Trump administration, they thought that perhaps we'll see what happened in January once again, that the people of Iran will rise up, that we now have saviors in the United States and Israel, and we will want change. But that hasn't happened either.
No, it hasn't happened, and that's been a disappointment. But I mean, I would also stress that that was a best case scenario. It wasn't as though there was a 100% expectance that that would happen. But
This
Donald
is the
Trump, of
second
course,
best case scenario that you thought will happen and didn't.
Well, the second best case scenario, of course, would be just the destruction of all of the relevant capacities for Iran to project force and to try, at least from a aerial and naval capacity, to decapitate them to some degree. As we've discussed here, the capacity for a U.S. invasion not only is the only arena where Iran would be successful against the United States, just because of the vast size of the country and how many forces would be required, but also we do feel that we can entomb these missile cities with our B-2 bombers. And so it's sort of becoming a strategic a changing of direction. But that doesn't mean that it was a miscalculation to have been optimistic. And Donald Trump, of course, being the salesman that he is, went out there and really tried to sell that to some degree. But I think the regime's crackdown, the 10 to 30,000 people they killed in that period of time, I think the U.S. sort of miscalculated. If they were going to do this invasion and get that revolution, they needed to have done it then. And I think that ultimately was probably the biggest miscalculation of it all, was the timing, if they had wanted that to happen.
But you talk about Donald Trump being the salesman and he tried to sell it to the Iranian people and they didn't buy it. But it doesn't look like Donald Trump has had many buyers. That includes a lot of the American public who are extremely dissatisfied with this war and the decision of plunging the United States into another war, which may become a forever war. Your allies aren't buying this sales pitch either.
Well, there's two things. Yes, at home, I wouldn't say there's any real support. Maybe it's like a 70-30 against it, and the people who support it are older people. Most of the younger people, though, are concerned about the concept of a ground invasion. Trump toes the line. He's very hawkish on strikes, very dovish on troops on the ground. So as long as he keeps boots off the ground, except for Delta Force and Special Forces, he's going to be able to walk this around. When regard to our allies, I mean, we're currently the main funders of Ukraine's defense against Russia. Well, Europe buys Russian gasoline and blames India for it, by the way. And so we
So does
wonder,
the United States, by the way. The
well,
United States
it's
does buy
everybody.
stuff from Russia as well, including fertilizers, and then turn around and blames India.
Well, we have to use everybody in the way that we can to be helpful to each other in these interesting times. It's not as though India isn't a helpful partner, and it's not as though India and the United States don't coordinate that behind the scenes as well. I would point out though that it's important to realize that other countries benefit from the Strait of Hormuz much more than the United States does. And so Donald Trump's disappointment, I would say, with the French for not letting us fly over, or with the British, who functionally are the reason for almost all of these problems in the Middle East, for their reluctance to be involved at all or to abscond any sort of responsibility and say we'll show up after it's all done. I think Trump probes and prods a little bit, but it's not as though we needed them. They're not a functional group of people as a fighting force, and the United States and Israel together are able to carry out their military objectives. It just was a poor show of alliance from people who ultimately the French and the British did create this problem in the beginning.
Because perhaps they weren't taken on board before this happened. I mean, the British base in Cyprus was one of the first military assets of another country outside of Israel and the United States that was hit. But Milad Rabbani, as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, Donald Trump in his address also went on to say that with or without the Strait of Hormuz clearing up, if a deal happens, then it will be the end of war. What happens then? What happens to the Strait of Hormuz? Will Iran continue to have this chokehold over it that no other country, barring the 4 countries that are allowed now, will have safe passage?
What President Trump told absolutely doesn't make sense. If they take even the Strait of Hormuz, the war will not be ended. The war only in one time will be ended. The time of regime change. Regime change, but not in the President Trump's interpretation. The regime change, what we observed in Syria, it was regime change. Just imagine, even they can take the Strait of Hormuz. Who can stop the Iranian missiles or marine mines? Iranian has got many capability to make problem. And the strongest point of Iranian regime is they can use terror and terrorists as a means of foreign policy, as Israel, of course, is professional in this. So if Iranian regime wants to launch the terrorist attacks to U.S. forces on the ground, I mean, not aerial forces, who wants to stop them? And you will see they have tactics in this and they have calculations. But I believe this one is a question only. Trump has predicted this reaction from Iran. I believe Trump is playing, and it's a play, but the play that Trump and his colleagues will be benefit from. They will enjoy the benefit of and take advantages of this war. And who really are losing, they are Europeans, Iranian people, and American people also. American people are losers of this war.
Last 30 seconds, Zirol Murkoch, I want to ask you this. Has Donald Trump given up on the Strait of Hormuz because he's realized it's not a battle he can win?
He hasn't given up on it. He's just trying to see who he can entice to join him in this sort of new operation idea of it. He is very aware, of course, of the realities of the situation, and I think he's looking for a diplomatic solution that's going to come at the end of these 3 weeks of increased bombardment. So
That's not the kind
peace
of
through
message he
strength.
sent out when he said all those who want oil from the Strait of Hormuz should go fend for themselves.
Well, he did say that, but in the end, what he says to manipulate the media and what he does back channeling diplomatically are two different things. And with the U.S. military increasing its strikes for the next 2 weeks, let's see how long the Iranians can keep that strait closed on their own.
Well, I don't know if it's just the media that seems to be misinformed, because this is the kind of sales pitch he was making to the American public as well. And midterm elections are going to happen in a few months. And the people of America will decide whether this was a wise decision for Donald Trump to go into this war. When it will end, how it will end, we'll keep an eye out on that. But I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here and sharing your perspective.